Okay, what are our civil bodies? We've got Consumer Affairs Victoria. They undertake conciliation, which is a free dispute resolution method that they use. And their jurisdiction is they help consumers that have initiated claims against businesses or traders, business owners, and they help tenants that are trying to initiate claims against their landlords, but not the other way around. So doesn't help landlords against tenants, but tenants against landlords. It does help. So you need to know this jurisdiction. Also, role in education. We see some purposes that they have, but they use they're a free service, they're a government service, and they provide conciliation, which is an alternative dispute resolution method for free. Okay, so when deciding, um, you need to be able to discuss when and where it's appropriate. Basically, conciliation is a dispute resolution method where you get an expert to talk to you and the person that has caused you wrong. So let's imagine it's a tenant and a landlord and an expert, and they have this discussion going back and forth, trying to come to an agreement. The tenant is saying, you need to fix, the thing that you haven't fixed for months, or you need to pay me X amount of money for the issues with the property. And they need to come to an agreement. And the conciliator helps because the conciliator is an expert and gives suggestions of solutions. The problem with conciliation is that it's not legally binding. So the parties just have to trust each other to uphold the outcome. Okay. So that helps when thinking about appropriateness. So obviously, whether the dispute is within CAV's jurisdiction, the jurisdiction is tiny, consumers against traders and tenants against landlords. Only those claims can be heard by CAV. Whether the dispute is likely to settle, because there is no force agreement and the parties themselves have to come to an agreement. This is crucial. If one of the parties is not willing to negotiate, CAV is inappropriate. Whether the claim is from a tenant or a consumer, that relates to the jurisdiction. Whether the parties are willing to participate in conciliation. Basically, none of the parties can be forced to show up and attend. Okay, and whether there are other or better ways to resolve the dispute. If one of the parties doesn't trust the other or both, and they want a legally binding outcome that will definitely be upheld, CAV becomes inappropriate. So some examples here. When parties are able to discuss the issue, come to a resolution themselves, it's going to be appropriate. When they have limited money because the service is free, inappropriate when parties refuse to discuss the issue or when a case does not fit under their limited jurisdiction. All right, now looking at VCAT. It's a smaller body. CAV is a smaller body. VCAT is a big body. It aims to hear civil cases more efficiently and effectively. Basically, this is a tribunal that you can go to instead of the courts that has a really huge jurisdiction, hears almost everything, and costs a lot less than the courts and is supposed to be faster as well. So it aims to reduce costs, to be quicker than the courts. And we see that some claims were only 10 weeks. A lot of things take about a year via the courts, and is more time efficient, has less formality, and less costs attached. So when you discuss appropriateness of VCAT, we need to consider whether the dispute is within VCAT's jurisdiction, which I mentioned it hears most things. So it generally is for almost every question pretty much. The cost and the time involved. Some lists, which means types of disputes in VCAT, do take a really, really long time. The example usually used in textbooks is planning disputes. They usually take over a year and still are very expensive. So that would make it potentially useless to take the claim to VCAT, and we might go to the courts instead. Whether the parties can resolve the dispute themselves, that would make CAV more appropriate because it would be free and they can just come to an agreement, and it would make any sort of alternative dispute resolution method better because costs and time and relationships would be salvaged. whether the parties prefer the formality of the courtroom. They do want to go to court. They do want those rules of evidence and procedure, whether the matter is large or complex. VCAT is not good for large or complex matters. If a complex law needs to be applied, a judge is needed to make the decision. Okay, and you'll learn later about the doctrine of precedent. Don't worry about this yet. But that also relates to laws being too complex. VCAT, unlike CAV, does give a legally binding outcome. So that is the benefit of VCAT over CAV, the main benefit, I would say. Bit of a table here, appropriate when parties want to resolve disputes through mediation or arbitration. We'll look at these in more detail. Basically, alternative dispute resolution methods are also used in VCAT. They even can offer conciliation, but it's more rare when parties don't want to go to court but do want a legally binding decision when they cannot afford to go to court because VCAT is cheaper. However, VCAT can still be more expensive, long waiting times, and some cases will not fit under VCAT's jurisdiction. So you need to be able to compare. I've already brought a lot of points up. Feel free to use this table as a cheat sheet to start with. But you'll need to build it in much more detail.